Welcome to This Week in Rockford, episode 11, recorded January 4th, 2017. With me, co-host James Haggerty of RockfordAdvocate.com.
Hello.
Hello. Caleb Wilson. The Caleb Wilson, yes.
Yes.
As if there could be any other. And producer Jake the Snake Morgan. All right. So, guys, what's happening in Rockford this week?
And Jeff Orduno.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I'm Jeff
Yes,
Orduno, for
yes.
whatever that's worth. All right. So what's happening in Rockford this week, James?
Apparently a lot. Caleb and I ran into each other on New Year's Eve, so we should probably get that out of the way.
We did.
Yeah, exactly what was happening.
Well, not a lot at the time, but, we were out, about town.
So all the important people were out,
Well,
is what you're saying. You and other
where we
important
were,
people like
yes.
you.
Where we were, about, what would you say, nine other people were present?
With myself.
Well, including us, there was probably 12 people there.
What was Caleb doing out?
I
Jim?
don't know. He was, passing the time festively.
That's right.
I heard Caleb was trying to make relationships with ladies.
Well, I think you were with some ladies, weren't you?
Yes, I was.
See? Yeah, so, it's better than what I was doing. When we ran into each other, I was not in the presence of ladies, except the bartenders who were serving me ice water all night long. I was listening to 90s music, talking to a couple other guys. So,
Wow.
I was not on that.
All right, well, that's...
I was not going down the road that, looked like Caleb was on.
Wow.
I wasn't going down any road either.
See? He was just out with friends. See?
Was it a dead end? Oh.
Well,
Yeah.
Just friends?
Yep, just friends.
Just friends? Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. All right, so that... but that was New Year's Eve. That sounds exciting. Where was that?
Downtown.
Downtown, at an undisclosed location.
Yes, it was. It was a place.
All right.
Yeah, I was ready to do nothing until a friend of mine asked me if I would accompany him out, squire him about town while he had a couple drinks.
Wow, okay.
Yeah. Which didn't end up to be anything except my jaunt from my apartment and back. Exciting stuff.
Wow, all right.
New Year's Eve downtown Rockford really thumps.
Yeah, it sounds like, it was all
What
lit
did you
up.
do?
It wasn't bad. The location where we were was not the
right.
most, sometimes not
No,
the most.
where did you go from there? Because I went nowhere. Actually, I did go another place, but it was really not to my liking either. New Year's Eve isn't to my liking anyway, as far as, the established, the traditional type of places. But you guys were walking around, were you? So,
Yeah,
so
we
how,
were.
how is downtown Rockford on New Year's Eve? I don't think I've ever celebrated New Year's Eve downtown Rockford. I used to, back in that life, was always playing music somewhere, usually out of town.
Yeah, it's not bad down here.
Yeah.
I just walked around and went to the usual places. So
The huge.
Wow. Okay. Well, that's the Downtown Rockford report. This sounds like NPR at this point. You two over there talking about possibly. It sounds like the most quiet, sedate New Year's Eve ever.
It was sedate.
Let's move on to shootings. Shootings
No,
at Cliffbreakers.
that was on
specifically.
New Year's Eve.
That was on New Year's Eve. What happened, James? Rockford Advocate reported on this.
Another what I think being built as a pop-up nightclub. These things are very popular now.
So, what is a pop-up nightclub?
well, it's
for
just
those of us who
it's
live a
pri-
more sheltered life.
a little more sheltered life. Well, it's a basic nightclub setting, a private party that any individual might have in a private room. So you basically rent a couple of hotel rooms and you run the event like a nightclub for the evening.
Do you charge? Like, is there like a cover charge?
I don't know. Usually, looking into where these things are traditionally held in other cities, they're usually not a problem, but they do have the propensity of getting very overcrowded. And the last two that we had in Rockford that we know of were, involved some fights. Obviously, the clock tower was one of these things. Fatal shooting there, and fight broke out. Someone pulled a gun, and that was it.
And now you're talking about Cliffbreakers
Yes.
on New Year's Eve.
Well, yes, both of them. But
Okay.
yes. So
So-
a pop-up nightclub is just a private party that's run like a nightclub in a non-traditional nightclub venue.
Now, is this what prompted the press conference with the mayor and Chief O'Shea?
I think it was the culmination of everything, with the Cliffbreakers incident being the tipping point. And they addressed it.
What did they say? I wasn't there.
You were not there?
I was not there.
I didn't see you there.
For those of us who weren't there, what did they say?
I didn't see you in the junket. Well, I mean, I think the mayor and the chief are just as fed up as everybody else. So it was more or less a cry for the public's help. The chief was clear in that.
What do they want from the public?
Well, they want people with information to come forward, and I think that's a problem in Rockford right now, where there's folks who may know things about crimes that they may have seen, heard, or have information about. They don't want to come forward because they don't trust the police. Which in some neighborhoods in this community it's understandable, and I think officers know that. But so it's a cry for the public's assistance in catching some of these lunatics that are out there acting as such. And obviously a homicide takes precedent over some of these other crimes. I don't think they have any suspects. So it was a cry for the public's help, and also to kind of reassure everybody that there are investigations out there, and the police are working around the clock on some of this stuff, all of this stuff. We should probably have Gentleman Dan O'Shea on the show.
We should. To ask him.
That's his new name now.
Gentleman Dan O'Shea?
Yeah.
He probably prefers Chief, but yeah, we can call him Gentleman O'Shea. Sure.
Yeah. It sounds Irish, doesn't it?
It does.
Right.
Yeah. It kind of does. Yeah, I agree with that.
But he could be Scottish, so I don't know. I'll have to ask him.
O'Shea? Sounds Irish, but I may not understand my
Celtic
names from
history.
that part of the world. Yeah, I could be wrong. Yeah. So Daniel O'Shea sounds Irish, but that's just me.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what else happened at this press conference? I mean, what do they want from the public? They want information. Do they want us to carry and use firearms?
I don't think that was discussed. I walked in when it was already well.
Did you raise your hand
underway.
and suggest it?
No, but I
Could you next time?
I have a couple of editorials that go down that road that lean towards that, but it's a very slippery slope once you start calling people to arms, in a public forum. Mm-hmm. But I think the notion is a good one, because as you've seen also on New Year's Eve, we had a concealed carry license holder get mad because he was ejected from Francesco's and start popping rounds off in the air. So I mean, even people with legal guns are acting like fools, and I think it's because he was drunk. I have no idea, but this 24-year-old kid is probably going to get his concealed carry license yanked because he was drunk and was charged for using or concealing a weapon while under the influence of alcohol, which, according to the law, I think is pretty serious. You get your license taken away, probably your gun as well.
That makes sense. Why did he get ejected?
Don't know. But, I mean, what a way to celebrate. I think it was his birthday as well as New Year's Eve, so happy birthday to him.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah. So we're becoming a gun culture in Rockford anyway. So should there be a call to action in that way? I think it's getting to the point where I think the press should get involved in just warning people that if they do that doesn't necessarily mean they have to start shooting. But brandishing a firearm to protect yourself, according to statistics, usually will quell an incident of robbery. It doesn't mean you just shoot somebody. In incidents where legally concealed weapons were brandished, they weren't fired in the majority of the time.
Yeah, but think of it this way. If the person actually shoots somebody, then that factors that criminal out possibly from future crimes.
Well, sure it does, yeah. I wouldn't want to have someone's blood on my hands for any circumstances at all. I mean, but there are some people, which is why we need to be careful in sending that message, that will just get the idea that concealed carry and, hey, call to arms and protect yourself means going out and popping people, and that's kind of what you don't want.
Yeah, but wait a minute. It's not going out and popping people. I mean, if somebody comes up and tries to accost or mug you or rob you, I mean, to me, at that point, they've invited the problem. This is not legal advice. This isn't telling you to do this. That's just my observation, is that, to me, the person has invited a violent response. By committing a felony, they've invited a violent response.
Well, yeah.
And then the founding fathers thought the same, or at least the law system, the legal system.
I mean, you grew up in the 80s like I did.
Yeah, the 1980s, not the 1780s, yeah.
But I was brought up listening to elders say if you mess around with the wrong person, don't be surprised at the consequences or how that person's going to react.
Right.
And if someone pulls out a gun and you're agitating this person, he shoots you, well, you have yourself to blame if you're maimed or dead.
Right.
So and also you have to respecting each other is a very 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 important thing as well. But I think it's just going to be a matter of time before that goes out that precept goes out the window and people just start shooting back. That's just my thoughts. I don't want it to happen, but I do agree that there are some people that bring this on themselves and they must live and die by that choice. Unfortunately for them, some of these folks are going to die, it's going to be too late.
Well, then they probably shouldn't rob, mug, or accost people, right?
That's the.
I'm not saying it's an ideal outcome. I'm just saying I think we've reached a point where there is absolutely no friction or cost, virtually, to people committing crimes in the city.
I think you're absolutely right.
I mean, that's basically an economic analysis of what's going on.
Right.
I think
the
you
mayor
can commit crimes at will, essentially.
Right. And the mayor did mention that this is no longer a geographical problem, and because it used to be, it's kind of what got us here. It used to be the West Side was a crime-ridden area of Rockford, and that kind of was okay. Now we're finding out that it was never okay because it looks like some of the folks over there are now just kind of moving their show over to the other parts of the
West
city.
Side
It was never okay.
Sure, it served. We let the West Side serve as a breeding ground for criminals who are now criminalizing everybody all over town. Yeah. We should have never withstood them or allowed them or tolerated them being criminals on the West Side. We did, and now here we are.
Yes, it's a new generation of folks that have come out of that lifestyle that have no regard for innocent bystanders. I mean, you and I have talked away from the show about the fact, and the mayor did mention this, that a lot of this is a younger generation of criminal, sort of homegrown pockets of gangs around the city that have no regard whatsoever where the bullets fly.
I think we need a different solution. I think we need a solution that is outside the construct of what the police department has to offer, and I'm not talking about vigilantism necessarily. But what I'm saying is, I mean, this is like where General McChrystal talked about special operations in the last war, and he said, we realized that we weren't equipped to deal with Al-Qaeda because they just operated differently. We were this very efficient, technically great fighting force, but we weren't equipped the way we thought, the way we operated, the way we deployed, wasn't equipped to deal with that. We had to do something different. That's what we need here. And I don't know what the solution is. I'm not a police scientist, but I mean, I think we need something outside of beat cops rove around and beat cops do beat cop things and people respond to 911 calls. And I think we need something beyond that.
Yeah, I think so as well.
I mean, I guess I don't know what that is. My answer would be, I would say that we should ask, you'd never get this, but in my ideal world, you'd do what Abraham Lincoln did. You'd suspend parts of the Constitution. We can't do that because we can't suspend parts of the federal Constitution. Essentially, he was the president. He could do that. But I would just say that, these parts of the Constitution no longer apply. You've been warned. Basically, the parts of the Constitution, the way that the Supreme Court has construed it. Frankly, not the way the Founding Fathers construed it. I mean, at the Founding Fathers' time, if somebody had engaged in a felony, I believe that a citizen could shoot the person.
Right. So basically,
I believe that that person committed a felony. Now, I am a murderer if I'm wrong, but if I'm right, that person committed a felony, not even against me. That person committed a felony. I get to shoot that person.
Right. So summary judgments.
Well, yeah,
basically,
in a way, is one way of putting it.
Yeah. Civilians are carrying out the sentences.
Yeah, and now we say we call that murder, or we call it, if it's the police, we call it a due process violation. All right, take the kid in Chicago. We talked about this earlier today, Jim. The kid in Chicago that apparently was breaking into cars. The cops respond to the call. They come. The kid it's in dispute whether he was moving towards the police, away from the police. The police shoot him 16 times. right or wrong. Well, I don't know about 16 times, but on the other hand, if they knew the kid had been committing a felony at the time this country was founded, I believe it would have been legal for them to shoot him just that way. Now, it's a due process violation or a civil rights violation. You now have the ACLU suing. You have police telling 60 Minutes that we don't want to do our jobs anymore. Essentially, we don't want to make extra stops and arrests because it just turns into a fracas for us. So we'll respond to 911 calls, but we're not doing that other stuff. I mean, why do that?
Well, and all of this, a lot of what we're talking about
And
here,
that's in Chicago, to be clear.
well, yeah, and even the hotel area kind of has a tendency of bleeding into the area of civil rights, because how do you tell somebody that you can't have a party in your hotel room when the guy down the street or the guy down the hall is doing it? I mean, how can you discriminate against my party but you allow a wedding in the hotel? It's a conundrum of problems. But as the mayor pointed out in that case, they're going to have to do a better job in enforcing the occupancy rules and things like that. But even then, somebody is going to probably come to a civil rights defense in order to sidestep those things. So you either have a clear-cut message that this stuff is going to come with harsh consequences, or let it continue the way it is.
I've got to say this. I think to try and point the finger at Cliffbreakers, I mean, I think Cliffbreakers has turned into, frankly, it's gone way downhill. That's true.
It's
and
no
the
longer
clock tower
useful.
there's no doubt about that. I mean, would this have happened at, choose some fancy hotel in Chicago? Probably not. But to me, to point the finger at them and say you need to enforce occupancy rules, I mean, the real problem is that we in Rockford we as a community, we as the executive power and the police force have allowed people to run around and commit crimes like this with really little cost.
Right, and I took it a little bit. I mean, my hat's off to the city officials, but for standing up to this kind of stuff. But last Tuesday, there's 2 homicides within 3 hours. One is in the county, Chesney Park, and then you have this shooting. Well, I mean, this was the second hotel room shooting in 3 months. Same circumstances, different characters, and how many people have to lose their life before we actually stand up and say this is a real problem? I don't know, and it just because now it involves Cliffbreakers, which is now close to being the recipient of an almost $3 million Section 108 loan. The city's in a sticky situation a little bit there.
Well, that Section 108 loan, I think, is bizarre on its face, but that really has nothing to do with this. They're two unrelated things, I think.
No.
I'm not a fan of the 108 loan just on its own merits, but then this happens, and this whole thing, I wouldn't intertwine those two. I would just say that this is the logical outcome. This is what we've allowed. This is exactly the logical outcome.
Yeah, and to me, I mean, on that note, I mean, Cliffbreakers is that they're trying to cite they're trying to bring back to glory a hotel that is sitting in a dying part, or I want to say it's a significantly changing part of the city. I don't think there's a market for it anymore. Certainly not to the extent that Cliffbreakers used to be, and apparently they came to the table with a very good business plan and a very good sales pitch there to convince aldermen that a $2.7 million loan would be a great idea to resurrect Cliffbreakers. But
when you say, Jim, when you say used to be, I mean, the place was built. I mean, this has all happened since I got here in the late 80s, right?
Sure.
I mean, it was built and came to its peak. And I mean, we're not talking, like 100 years ago.
No, we're talking probably about, well, it was the majority of the time I've been to Rockford. It's been a significant place. I've been to New Year's Eve parties there. Cliffbreakers. It was a very good place to celebrate.
Did you get
New Year's
shot?
Eve. No, I did not. I don't think Jimmy Vitale brought in that kind of clientele. But he moved out where he could continue his genius out there to. What did that used
Stone
to be?
Eagle.
Yeah,
No.
Was that Cheddar's? What was that?
Stone Eagle before it was a Cheddar's, yes.
Yeah. So see, he got out. I think he saw the the city was changing, the landscape was changing, and the opportunity out there. And so I guess I can say it's a silly idea to try to keep Cliffbreakers going, just like it's a silly idea to keep Clock Tower going. These are two buildings that were landmarks in the past. It's time to move on.
All right. You should tell your alderman that, I guess.
Well, they're starting to realize it. You know, but I mean, I'm not an alderman. I didn't sit through, committee meetings while they listened to, pitches for these hotels. But Cliffbreakers is in a different position than Clock Tower was. Clock Tower is in major disrepair. Cliffbreakers I think needs a new roof. I don't know.
Okay.
Something. I honestly don't know what the 2.7 million is going to be for.
Oh, all right.
But it's no longer. I mean, what are occupancy rates out there? What are hotel occupancy rates in Rockford in general?
I don't know. You should call John Grow and ask him. He'd know that answer.
Yeah. Does he like us?
I don't
Ever
know. Like I
since
said, he
Stroll
waved
Day.
at me last time I saw him. I think he likes us okay.
Well, I don't know. I'm not an expert in the hotel industry whatsoever.
All right.
But I have a pretty decent grasp of economic development, and given the landscape of Rockford right now, we're obsessed with hotels when we should be obsessed with keeping people alive in the streets.
But in fairness, I mean, there are two different avenues. I mean, keeping people alive is really a matter of public safety, a matter of governmental concern, and hotels, right, is a private development enterprise, right?
Is it when we're giving out Section 108 loans to the tune of 2.7?
I agree with that. I mean, I wouldn't do that.
Well, that's just my thoughts.
Caleb, what do you say?
Mr. Burnham Loft himself. Your phone number's all over that building, and he just big.
Caleb's
big
own phone number?
Isn't it? Isn't that
No, that's not my cell
It's not.
number.
Oh, I was gonna do something anyway.
It goes to a payphone.
A payphone.
Yeah.
Really?
I mean, I don't know. There's other hotels that are not that great in Rockford, and these other hotels don't have this problem. It's a decency human being problem, right? I mean, it's humans.
Well, my point would be that any of these hotels could have that problem on the wrong night.
And maybe they do.
Wrong crowd, wrong night.
I happen to know there's some East Side hotels that used to be good that are now pretty much houses of prostitution, allegedly.
How do you know this, James?
Well, I have my ear to the ground. I get emails.
You've been scrounging around, James.
Not like that.
Okay.
But I know some folks who've come in from different places and leave. I mean, I literally talk to people all the time who have left Rockford, who've come back, or have.
And they're talking about the East Side hotels that are like that.
Sure.
Why are they talking about it?
Well, some people are neighbors of these places. And they see the type of clientele that's coming out there.
Gotcha.
All you have to do is have some have a couple moles inside some of these law enforcement agencies. You can find out what goes on in a lot of places in this town.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Hang out at the courthouse, find out where people are getting arrested and what people are being charged with. It's a lot sleazier than people think out there. But it doesn't happen anywhere near Burnham Lofts anymore like it used to.
No.
No, it's a great place. I keep throwing that out there because Caleb is in charge of leasing that fine facility.
Yes. So what's happening with the Ice Hogs?
They lost last night 5-2
To the Admirals.
Admirals. Yeah, 11 wins on the season.
Out of?
I believe about 25 games.
So they're trying to fight their way back to 500.
Trying to fight their way back to 500. I think the push for the playoffs is going to happen now. So it's a.
What's that take? What do you have to be in the top half,
I believe the
2/3 of
top
teams
four,
to be in the playoffs?
I believe it's the top 4 teams in the division. I think qualify, or top 3, something like that.
And how many teams are in the division?
I believe 8 or 7 or 8.
7 or 8.
Sogs are sitting,
So the top half, or
comfortably at
maybe
the
the top 4/7
yeah.
of the division. All right.
Not playing bad hockey, but now we got 2 guys up. the Blackhawks now. So,
who went up?
Tanner Caro from the UP, and Spencer Abbott is getting his. Is going to play his second ever NHL game tonight, I think.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's good for those guys, but anytime you have a shakeup like that, I mean, Tanner Caro and Spencer Abbott actually were two guys that Chicago was going to use to help Nick Schmaltz come down. Chicago wanted Schmaltz to kind of play with Tanner Caro and Abbott, who are skilled guys, and that was a great line for about 2 or 3 games. And then they had an injury up in Chicago, so Caro went up, and then Abbott caught fire, and Abbott went up. Now Schmaltz is down here by himself. So and Tyler Mott came back. So it's just a balancing act for Rockford.
Gotcha.
So it's tough. In the American Hockey League, it's tough because players go up and down all the time. Maybe we should talk about the Cubs.
We should talk about the Cubs. Their trophy, their World Series trophy, will be here the 8th.
Yeah, I heard it's
Sunday,
they're
right?
Polishing it tonight. I heard
They're polishing it. They're shining it up.
Shining it up, and it goes to.
Now, did you see, James, that somebody, some concerned viewer, wanted Caleb? They thought that Caleb might be a little more on board with the Cubs if they sent him a Cubs memento.
I was going to give him the blue mic foam here. What do they even call these things? Wind socks?
We should, yeah. I think a wind sock is a little more elaborate. I think these are just, wind screens.
Screens. What am I talking
Yeah.
about? Yeah, that is a work of metal craft there.
That's a work of something right there. So, that was sent. You're right. We should give Caleb kind of a blue and red. We should merge, cut them in half and make a blue and red one for Caleb.
Yeah. That's a beautiful,
I don't like
beautiful
that idea.
piece.
Do you like that, Caleb?
That looks
I don't
like
that
it
at
could have
all.
been crafted right here in Rockford, downtown somewhere.
Not too far from here, I bet. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know that it's licensed. Might be one problem with it.
No. It
Yeah.
looks pretty.
Not sure they paid the royalty.
They should
the
melt
Cubs for
that.
using that.
They should melt it down and just.
into a ring, into a momentous
Went into
Cardinals
a championship ring for the Cardinals.
Cardinals, yes. You do all kinds of things with that.
Caleb, you don't seem very excited about the
I'm not.
Cubs
I'm
item
not.
that was submitted by a viewer.
Who submitted that?
A viewer submitted that specifically for Caleb.
No,
No.
they did not.
Specifically for Caleb.
I think the viewer made it.
Maybe Caleb would like the Cubs better if only he had some Cubs memorabilia.
It's not going to happen.
Well,
No,
Cubs can't be all things to all people.
I don't know why you want to hand on the Cubs, Caleb.
So what else we have?
Well,
I mean,
let's take a quick break.
It's been a big week.
It has been a big week.
Yeah,
What we're missing here is Chairman Frank Haney apparently had something else come up. So we have no Chairman Frank Haney, and this is,
We have no chairman.
well, he is still the chairman. We just don't have him here tonight.
Okay.
So it's just us. We haven't had just us for
All right.
10 episodes.
So
now.
we're going to have another segment then. That's going to really.
We are going
knock
to have another
people's
segment.
socks
We are
off.
going to have another segment.
Yeah.
But we're going to take a quick break and grab Jake the
Snake.
Snake and get his driving update. He now has a license.
Yeah.
So that's people need to be wary when they're out on the streets of
So
Rockford.
it's the chances of you getting hit in the Guilford High School parking lot have just increased. So
Dramatically.
So parents, look out! Your insurance rates are going up.
Rockford lookout. Rockford lookout. Yes. Jake the Snake has a license.
Yeah.
So,
Knock on wood.
yeah. So we'll take a quick break. We'll come back from that and talk about another thing that Rockford Advocate's working on. All right, and we're back from the break. James Haggerty, what else is Rockford Advocate working on these days?
Oh, many things. Aside from different site designs that I'm kind of toying with, working on a true crime series.
True crime. Tell me about that. What?
Well, there's been some information sent to me from a couple of different places about the Jennifer Lockmiller case, as you know, the Alan Beaman case. Rockford man falsely accused of a murder, actually falsely convicted of a murder, spent 13 years in jail, prison. He was acquitted in 2014, early 2014, was pardoned by Governor Quinn as he was shooed out the door by Mr. Rauner. And there was other suspects in that case, and I believe one of them has ties to Rockford. I'm kind of investigating that.
Now, the case, I've never heard that another suspect was identified or another suspect has been investigated. I mean, so you're talking about a suspect from the original investigation?
The original investigation, there were 3 suspects, actually 4, I believe, including Alan Beaman. There was 4. I think there was 4. All of them, including Mr. Beaman, proved that they weren't even there. I think 2 of these guys were school teachers or something like that. They had alibis, solid ones, on the job during the murder when they think the murder happened. There's no way Beaman did it. He was in Rockford. And there's this one guy who they just had some problems with. I think he had a botched polygraph exam, which isn't admissible, but they didn't cooperate with the cops there. Had some just shaky alibi that started with the story that he wasn't even in town. Could never tell investigators what time of day he may have left the area, what time he came back. I think at one time he even claimed that he's not good with keeping track of what day of the week it is or what time of the day it is. Just, I think he said his mother or his girlfriend at the time reminded him what time it was. It was just really kind of bizarre questioning these depositions. And I think he was deposed a couple of times. He took the fifth on every question, pled the fifth, which is his right to do. So it was just really odd. And then a newspaper article came out, I think it was a couple of years ago, right around when Beaman was pardoned, that pretty much said that there was sperm samples taken from I think Lockmiller's underwear or maybe on her body. I don't know. But the DNA from those samples didn't match any of the suspects. I'm trying to find out if they eliminated everybody. But the question I have is, maybe you as an attorney can tell me, does that necessarily mean that these guys didn't do it? Can you eliminate?
Well, I think that's a lawyer question. I think that's a pure logic question.
Okay.
I think to say that the DNA of, so you're saying DNA of unknown men, right, men who aren't part of the pool of the original suspects that were investigated, to say that, let's say, outside DNA was present at the scene, I don't think that proves or disproves anything. I mean, who knows how that DNA got there, whether that was, let's say, voluntary or involuntary, and then who knows what happened after that. Right. I mean, unless they can prove some way that, I guess if the same DNA matched DNA on, there were, I think, 1 or 2 different implements of murder, then to me that would be a little stronger. That still wouldn't necessarily preclude all other possibilities, but that would be a little closer. But it doesn't sound like that they've said that.
I don't know if they've said that. I'm waiting for some comment there. I'm going to have to FOIA some documents there, and I've talked to some key people in the case, and a couple of them. Well, one of them says, they're really not on board with that theory at all. That I think there's some people in this case that believe that if you find the owner of these DNA samples, these sperm samples, or these the semen they found, you find your killer. And I again, may or not be the case because it doesn't mean that. And to me, there's circumstances that are glaring surrounding this one suspect who has never been able to prove with any degree of certainty whether he was somewhere else. And based on testimony from 1994, he finally admitted that, yes, he was there. He was in the vicinity. So to me, that he looks like somebody that may not be eliminated based on that. But again, there might be evidence in that case that I don't know about.
All right.
And I'm going to follow up on that. So that's something I'm going to...
So you're FOIAing some documents, requesting them by Freedom of Information Act for people who don't sit around requesting documents all the time. That's what FOIA is.
Yes. Following that, I'm following the Stephen Avery, Brendan Dassey, Making a Murderer stuff. Very interesting things there. I've got a couple of sources in that case that are helping me out with some things. It's a case right now where there's advanced forensic testing being done, waiting for the results of that. Stephen Avery's new lawyer claims that it's going to exonerate him. And as you know, Dassey's conviction has been vacated, but he's still in prison. Supreme Court judge there in the seventh was a district.
Seventh Circuit.
The Seventh Circuit ruled that he needs to stay in there while his appeal is underway, or during the appeals process. So he's in prison still, as only a suspect now. So it's a interesting case. And then I think the second season of the series is coming out. I'm also starting a domestic violence series.
What's that about?
Well, it's surrounding the unfortunate situation up in McChesney Park last week. It's one of those homicides that happened within hours of each other. One of them was
the young lady was a sophomore at
Harlem. Yes,
right.
in Harlem. Tragedy, and that happened a couple of hours after the Auburn student was shot on the west side. And that was a case where this, I think his mother was driving them to the Globetrotters game. I think they were just on the way downtown, and bullets started riddling the car. He was in the back seat and died, shot in the head.
Wow.
She was shot as well. The mother was shot as well. So that funeral, I think, is Friday. I'm probably going to attend that. I might write about that. But these are cases right now that are open, fresh homicides that happened right at the end of the year. The Auburn student's homicide was the 26th and final homicide of 2016, and then the Cliffbreakers happened 3 hours into the new year. But the McChesney Park involved domestic violence, involved an order of protection, and involved a suspect who had a string of domestics and spent time in prison. I think on some arson charges. I think maybe a burglary or something like that. But he's a guy that had a history of doing this stuff. Allegedly tried to seek revenge against his ex-girlfriend, which is this student's mom. Broke into their house and started shooting the place up. The victim grabbed a kitchen knife and tried to fight the guy off, pushed him out of the house because he was going to kill everybody in there, which consisted of a 63-year-old woman who was shot in the face. There was a 6-year-old hiding in the bedroom, and this 16-year-old fought this guy off for as much as she could, and he killed her outside the apartment. And so there's some questions that the family has, and one of the big things that this girl's mother wants is just to raise some awareness of, for people who are afraid to get out of abusive relationships, and she kind of feels a little bit bad, and maybe we can have her on the show. I think she'd be willing to come on and talk about this. One of the things she wants everyone to realize is that she did the right thing by getting rid of this guy. Then he was arrested for an incident, and her daughter still got killed. So it's a tragedy up there.
Yeah, because there was an open, I don't know if it was an order of protection or no stalking order.
He's got 2 or 3 open orders of protection against different people. And I talked to one of those people today who has an open order of protection against this guy. He's got 2 pending cases against him. One is aggravated assault. I think another one's a felony domestic. So the guy has active cases and active convictions. And he was able to bond out of jail in this past felony for $250, a $2,500 bond. I don't know the particulars there. There are some people angry that claim, of course, that if his bond would have been higher, he would have been in jail and wouldn't have been able to commit this crime. But he was bound and determined to kill somebody.
Well, it's an interesting thing because it periodically comes up. The topic in my life, legal stuff, just it comes up. I don't do a ton of that kind of work, but orders of protection, and my observation is generally, I'm not trying to dismiss them, but the reality is it's a piece of paper, and until the police are there to enforce it, or the sheriffs, the deputies are there to enforce it, it's just a piece of paper. Yeah. So if you're dealing with some kind of wackadoodle, you get this. Yeah. And that's terrible. And
there's a lot of things that are coming out now about this suspect that kind of put a lot of pieces together, and I'm going to chronicle that hopefully in a series. And the victim's mother is giving me a lot of information on that, and opening a lot of doors for me to meet certain people who have had interactions with this guy and other abusive people that are running around Rockford. And so, I think Tom McNamara talked about that. A lot of these crimes that are going through the court system involve defendants who are guilty of domestic violence or charged with.
He did talk about an astronomical number of or percentage of the murders in Rockford, and that were domestic violence related.
Mm-hmm. And I wonder how many of these homicide victims who have children who grow up in these abusive homes are growing up to be criminals. I mean, obviously we talk about that for you always talk about, that, rearing kids in abusive and horrible environments, they turn out to be criminals. There's statistics to back that up. But, in today's day and age, when this is becoming more and more prevalent, what do you do? Except, cry out for laws to change and policies to change. And, my question is, in this particular case, this guy gets out of jail on a $250 bond, posts 10% of a $2,500 bond, $250. Is that something a judge kind of made a decision on? Is there a bond statute that he had to abide by? Or was it just one of these things that, it's part of this numbers game that once in a while this is going to happen? Well, once in a while, in this case, meant that a 16-year-old girl is dead when the mother did the right thing to get rid of the person who was causing problems in their life, and it still happened. What more could she have done except kill this guy herself?
And we discourage that.
Yes.
So, wow. Well,
Yeah.
that's a lot of deep stuff you get into over there at Rockford Advocate.
Well, it's when you're downtown Rockford 99% of the time, it's, gotta watch out. No.
Well, that was in the Chesney Park.
No, I mean, yes. When you're left alone with your own devices, like I am most of the time, except when I'm sitting here with you fine people.
Oh, okay.
You know,
So you're talking more about the
I ruminate.
yes, ruminating. Your time to ruminate on these things.
No, it's it's something that we all should be thinking about.
For sure.
What about
All
you,
right.
Caleb? What do you got going?
Caleb, any
What do I
updates from
go-
you?
Not quite like Jim Haggerty's updates.
Well, what's going on with Burnham? It looks good.
Burnham Lofts.
It's coming
Looking
along. It's coming along right now. So we're close.
So if I wanted to live in Burnham Lofts, could I bring a basset hound with me?
How much does it weigh?
66 pounds, I think.
good. What's the weight limit, Caleb, at Burnham?
The dog's only 3 inches off the ground at best.
65-pound weight limit.
Oh, I can
He
slow him
needs to
down.
lose a pound.
Yeah.
I can get him down to that.
Needs to lose a pound.
I mean, he's this tall. I could tell you he's 40 pounds. And you'd probably. I mean, I could pass him off as a cat.
A really big cat.
But-
And meanwhile, we've got Jake the Snake got his driver's license.
Yeah. So now, have you picked out a parking spot yet? Now you're gonna have to buy a parking pass, which I think is prorated.
At Guilford.
you'll be all right.
Well, first of all, Snake, do you have a car?
Yeah,
Snake does have a car. What kind of car is it?
truck.
A
Oh,
truck. What
boy.
kind of truck?
Chevy Silverado,
A Chevy Silverado. What year?
2003.
2003. And what color?
Blue.
Do you have any
Blue.
blue? Do you have any stickers on this thing?
Yeah,
What kind of stickers?
from my dad's old work.
Oh, from your dad's old work. All right. I want people to be on the lookout.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and,
You know,
and it's a newer vehicle than I and Caleb drive. So you're
This is true.
one step away above what we got going on as
There you
a
go,
bunch
Snake.
of older people in life. So you're very privileged to drive a 2003 vehicle. I don't think
Yeah.
I've ever driven anything newer than a 91. Well, lately.
So, Jake the Snake, people can be on the lookout if you see a 2003 blue Chevy
Are
Silverado
there any
pickup.
dents in this thing yet?
Yeah, any distinguishing features or marks about this thing?
So it's vintage cherry condition. Showroom shine.
Not exactly.
Exactly.
Not exactly. All right. Normal wear and tear for a 2003 Chevy Silverado. So be on the lookout for Jake the Snake.
They mail the driver's license to you now.
They mail you your driver's license
Yes.
now?
You take a selfie for the
How's that
for
happen?
the photo.
They give you a piece of paper with your picture on it and your license, and then they mail you the hard copy later.
oh yeah.
What, they don't want to keep the driver's license blanks at the facility?
I don't know.
That's bizarre.
How did this? Jake showed it to me earlier, and it's a piece of paper with.
Are you sure Jake didn't just print
I think
that out
that's
of
just
the
for the
computer?
juvenile ones, the under 21 ones. I believe.
Snake probably just printed that out. Sure, here's my license. We'll see if it works with a cop.
Yeah.
Now, what are your driving rules, Jake? How many people are you allowed to have in the car? I know there's all these rules now for kids.
I think it's just one.
Just you? Can I ride with you
Yeah, I think.
at my own peril?
Yeah.
No, there's not state law that mandates that, is there?
I thought there was
Yeah.
something about you could only have a
can't-
certain number of other kids in the car. Maybe it's okay if they're adults.
I don't know. I see Guilford kids piling in there like the phone booth craze back in the 60s.
The phone booth craze back in the 60s.
I mean, I don't remember the phone booth
Okay,
craze in the
Grandpa. All right.
1960s, but I know what it is. Know what it was. It's like I was never at Woodstock, but I
All
listened to Hendrix.
So does this cover this all the news this week in Rockford?
I don't
It
know
does.
what else. You don't have your you don't have the tablet.
Well, I have the iPad, but that was all the news. I'd anticipated talking with the chairman, but the chairman couldn't be here.
We can
So
talk about
it's-
the chairman if
It's
you
just
want.
us. We can talk about the chairman. Sure.
We have not talked about the sheriff yet.
Well, no, we should just get the sheriff here.
We should. And the city and the Rockford Police Department and the sheriff now are kind of working together a little bit better than they used to. And Caleb and I talked about this before the show, and it's, I think this is going to be probably a multi-year project, considering the fact that the law enforcement scope of things in that area, at least with the city, was shambled in prior administrations.
Mm-hmm.
And just because you had a union that didn't, they voted the chief out, I think twice, right? Didn't they? They voted no confidence a couple of times.
Yeah, I think so.
Kicked him out
Yeah.
of the union. So that's never good. I don't know who's.
Yeah.
I'm not going to take sides there, but I do know that a fractured relationship like that between the city and the rank and file police department is never good.
Right.
Yeah, and so I think that's being repaired. But I think the question is, how long will that take? I'm afraid it's going to get worse before it gets better. What do you think?
I agree. It's going to take some time.
Has anybody mentioned bringing back or getting Blue Thunder?
You talked about that.
The attack
That's
helicopter?
the helicopter
I think
with
I want to
machine
buy a
guns.
screening. I think people get really excited if I put on a screening of Blue Thunder.
Here, pull it up and put a picture
Yeah.
of it. Let's see if we can get a
Not
picture
tonight.
of Blue Thunder.
No,
right
we'll
here.
do that. We'll do that when Chief and Sheriff are here. We'll do
Okay.
that then. So yeah, we'll run
So,
whatever
gentlemen, Dan.
whatever the longest possible clip is, probably 2 seconds
Okay.
without invoking the rules.
Roy
on
Scheider. Right?
YouTube. Yes, Roy Scheider. Yes. Yeah, I want that. I want that for Rockford. So I think I want to do a screening of that at the Nordloff and get the luminaries from around Rockford in there and get them really excited
Sure.
about this notion of a police helicopter that basically attacks the criminals. That it's not one to just haul people around or haul equipment around or look at things. It's like an attack helicopter.
I really think that there's going to be a push. Now, this is something that
I don't think it's constitutional, but I like it.
Well, I think there's going to be a push by city leaders.
Well, actually, I think it's constitutional, not under the way the Supreme Court has construed the thing. But anyway,
a police state.
No, the helicopter. But yeah, I'd be in favor of police state.
Well, I think right now there's going to be a push that, and we might have to, I would say, check around a little bit. Mm-hmm. Just how
Scrounge around.
Just how much money we have spent on some of this tactical type of things. I think we have a couple of these tank-like vehicles. That we've spent millions of dollars on this stuff, and I think there's some city leaders, kind of scratching their heads, saying, "Why aren't we using this stuff?" Or
fantastic.
why are we buying this stuff if we're not using it? We're screaming, yelling about all these drug problems, all these violent crimes. Let's start using some of these ramrods to bust down these houses. I don't know. They do it in Chicago.
Absolutely.
What do they call?
They
those
don't
things?
have things under control there either.
No,
But-
well, 762 murders, and I think
Yeah.
Rahm Emanuel is starting to come around. He's going to ask the Donald for help. I reported that today.
I saw that.
Yeah.
I saw that. Yeah.
So you can rip on that Donald all you want until you need him.
So
And that's what everyone should understand. All these liberal celebrities are ripping on Donald Trump, but back when he was just a billionaire, they lined up at his house, and I think his daughter actually said that. Back when my dad was just a billionaire, all these liberal celebrities would give an arm and a leg to be next to the guy, show up at his party. Now they're spitting at the guy, and I think that's funny.
no, it tells you what you're dealing with. But frankly, liberal celebrities to me are
Whiners.
I've never trusted them. Well, here's the thing about them. It's like they have money of all the categories of people who want to do liberal things, which generally involve spending money on other people. Well, then good. They should start with their money. That seems pretty simple to me. You spend all your money, then you come talk to the rest of us about our money. But since you think it's such a great idea, let's start with all your money. So, but yeah, and then they say things like Alec Baldwin's still here. He's funny, but I thought he was right. He was going to leave the country if George W. got elected the second time, right?
Yeah, that's right.
I'm not a huge George W. fan, but why say blather like that, right?
Wow.
I mean, whatever.
Alec Baldwin will continue to be rich.
Yes,
I mean, even guys like Wesley Snipes don't have problems. I mean, you go to jail for a little bit for tax evasion, but he can make $20-30 million by breathing. Burt Reynolds, I think, said it best when he was going through bankruptcy with this Lonnie. What was he married to?
Lonnie Anderson.
And he was on a talk show and he was talking about bankruptcy, and I think somebody, kind of gave a sigh of, of sorrow in the crowd, and he said, "Well, why are you? Don't be sorry for me. I'm a celebrity. I can make my millions of dollars back like that." And he did. All of a sudden, Burt Reynolds is broke one day, and then he does boogie nights, and now he's back to. So these people are screaming and yelling and bloviating over as though they're impoverished people living in the gutter. Whereas it's guys like us that have a hard time keeping our lights on, and we've actually work. So leave the country then. There's a few more Baldwins. Get rid of one of them. I wouldn't really miss them.
Stephen could step up.
One of them that's married to China Phillips is kind of cool.
I think something's wrong with Stephen. I don't know what it is. I don't know. I didn't realize one was married to China Phillips.
Oh. So people love that Wilson Phillips.
Yeah.
Hold on to one more day. Now, is that a copyright violation?
You didn't sing it, so YouTube won't block us. All right, I think that does it for this week in Rockford. Next week, actually, we've got the lady who is opposed to puppy mills.
Her name is Kathy, and she is going to talk to us about how she's taking on the puppy mill industry one dog at a time, because she's actually finding rescue homes for some of these.
One dog at a time.
One cat, I think, as well. I think she likes cats.
Oh.
She's not a cat lady.
Wait, cats more than dogs?
No, I think she's very...
Is she equal?
Yes. What do you call that? Diplomatic?
Well, I don't know. Unbiased towards cats and dogs?
Yes, yeah.
She has no bias, no bigotry towards cats or dogs?
I personally believe there's a special place in the, hell for cats, but that's just me.
Now, why do you not like cats, Haggerty?
They don't like us, believe me.
Yeah, I just think they don't like to show it, but... We'll ask her next week. I'm sure she has a better answer. She's had more chance to observe.
I mean, I'm not an animal abuser. I just think when, in the afterlife we don't see any cats, we don't wonder why.
Okay. That's that.
Can't mess with those
January
cats.
18th, we've got Rudy Valdez. 18th, we've got
coming.
Rudy
I
Valdez.
saw him last night. He was at the city council.
Rudy Valdez?
Yeah.
What do you do?
He's sitting in the back row paying attention to all of the...
paying attention to the important stuff.
Yeah. Paying
that he'll
attention
need
to
to know.
the meetings of the minds.
Yes, that he'll need to know in his campaign for mayor.
Where
Yes.
where Larry Morrissey made his declaration to send a shockwave through the hotel industry that we're not going to tolerate this anymore.
We're not going to tolerate how you use your rooms. I mean, I guess my answer, if I were a hotelier, would be, I'm not going to tolerate you letting basically criminals run all over town.
Is hotelier a word?
Yeah, that's a word.
Unbelievable.
It might be hotelier.
Yeah, I've never used that word before.
In France.
Yeah,
on Francais.
You're a wordsmith.
Yeah, I think hotelier is a word. Yeah. And I think I used it
Hey,
properly. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure.
Who's a Guilford English teacher we should ask? Yeah.
Snake, tell us a competent, because these questions come up from time to time. Like
Is Mr.
Big
Yerk an English teacher? No. Jim. All right. Bigley?
Oh,
Mr. Bingley.
Well, we need to ask him
Not
if
Mr.
hotelier is a word. Hotelier.
First of all, is
like
hotelier a
restaurateur?
word? Secondly, is Bigley a word? And actually, Bigley is a word.
That's a word.
It's a word. It means forcefully.
Right.
Yes.
So
we just don't
Trump,
use it anymore.
Trump is
other
not
than
as
Trump.
asinine as people say.
No, he was saying big league, but yeah,
Well, I don't know. what
that's
he's
a
saying.
different problem.
His diction is not my favorite, but I'm a stuttering fool most of the time. You think, Caleb?
I don't know anything about Trump's diction.
I don't either. I don't want to
You
know
don't
either.
listen to him. It's better than George W.
It is. It is. I'll give you that. All right.
George W.
James Haggerty, we can find at rockfordadvocate.com, where he's working on True Crime Series, a series on domestic violence. And Caleb Wilson, we can find leasing the Burnham Lofts.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Jake the Snake Morgan, we can find driving his 2003 Chevy Silverado pickup, blue, in or about the vicinity of Guilford High School. And I'm Jeff Orduno, and that's it for This Week in Rockford.